All right, well, thank you everyone for joining. We are here with Unboxed Advisors, and we're going to talk about how does your financial strategy measure up. We have Susan Bryant, if you
Hey, everybody.
and Catherine Meyer.
Hello.
So we are just going to dive in. For anyone who has questions or comments, there is a chat feature where you can do Q&A. So put your questions in there and then we will address them at the end. Any comments, fun things there. We'd love to hear what you have to say. For that, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing the screen and then we will go from there. All right. Can you guys see everything okay?
Mhm. Look,
Wonderful. So strategic wealth building strategies that get you going further, faster. We're going to do the intros. Here's the agenda and the breakdown, which you guys can review if you would like once you're talking. Susan, do you want to talk about this or would you like me to do this first before we go
yeah,
into your
I'd be happy to introduce the firm. The most important thing to know is that Unboxed Advisors is really the un-CPA CPA firm. We're not a CPA firm, but we are focused on leveraging tax, accounting, operational, and financial strategies to help people to build and protect their wealth. And that's really the focus of this webinar is from a very high level, some of the strategic things to be thinking of, but that's what we focus on here at Unboxed Advisors. It is really bridging the gap between what most accountants do and what other advisors do, and to help people create a cohesive strategy along the way. So that is what we focus on here at Unboxed Advisors. And we're super excited to be here today to share more about how we work in our approach and just provide some information to help you on your journey.
That's awesome. I am very excited to hear everything you have to say, and I'm sure everyone joining is very excited to hear it. So we kind of did a little backwards there, and I apologize, everybody, but here are our wonderful speakers that are here today. We have Susan Bryant, who is the CEO and founder of Unboxed. We call her a recovering CPA with over 20 years of experience in the accounting industry and is now a certified tax planner and investment advisor representative. Her focus is delivering strategic wealth building strategies that intersect between business, personal, and financial planning in a holistic, integrated approach. And then her counterpart superstar is Catherine Meyer, the COO and founder of Unboxed. And she has all these other wonderful, fantastic skills with 15 years of strategic practice management, experiencing working with high performing entrepreneurs, as many of the people joining today are, and their business and success and personal missions. She's the powerhouse behind the business owners achieving their highest vision with clarity, communication, which is so important, and accountability. So I will now just turn it over to you guys. I'm going to go ahead and turn my screen off, but if you have any questions or need help along the way, please just let me know really quick.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, you guys saw the agenda and we've got a lot to cover today, but the first thing we're going to start with is the problems and the pains. And as we all know, that's usually the point at which people are registering for a webinar like this is because they're experiencing one or more of these things. So let's kind of dive into what those look like. The key problems that we're seeing among business owners who are high income earning is first off is the lack of accounting and tax time they are getting from their experts. So traditional CPA firms are very focused on production of accounting reports, tax returns, and for business owners who find themselves with a lot of questions, they simply cannot get the attention of the advisor who is got the knowledge to advise them on the tax and accounting issues. And then that same vein, the communication is lacking. So when they do have a question, it might be a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before they actually get a response back on the answer to their question. It's slowing them down in moving along in their plans. They are unable to make decisions as quickly as they need to, and that becomes a really big hurdle. There's a lot of doing that's happening. I know, Catherine, you and I talk about this a lot. There's a lot of tasks, but not necessarily a big focus on results. And that can be a real big challenge for business owners who are like, well, hey, I need a tax return finished, or I need the accounting done, but I also need that to be interpreted into how does it align more with what I'm trying to accomplish? Uh, Catherine, I don't know if you want to talk about data disarray, but this is a huge issue.
Oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite topics, Susan. So thank you. Data disarray. We are often finding that there's no accounting records. You've set up this LLC, you've set up this entity, but you didn't set up books. You've got funds all over the place from different retirement accounts or investments that you've made. And if you have all these K1s coming in, there's just simply no one who is helping you keep track and keep tabs and keep focus of this ROI. And what ends up happening when your data is just all over the place, you end up operating from a place of feelings and not facts. And that can be a huge contributor to this next one of feeling stuck, Susan. Quite often we hear things like, am I doing the right thing? Am I alone? Like, what is going on? I just feel like I can't get unstuck or get where I need to be going. Those are some of the key problems that we see and help our clients face.
Yeah, and these are very common problems, and they get exacerbated the more and more an entrepreneur continues to participate in additional activities.
Yep.
So
and the cardinal sin.
Yeah, and then it becomes more than just a problem. It's more than just a pain point. It's really it's a big risk.
Mm-hmm. And then the kiss of death, surprise tax bills. Whoopsies! It is April 10th. You need to write a check for $250,000. Heart palpitating, anxiety inducing tax bills that have little to no notice. So if you're experiencing that kind of pain, know that you're not alone. And unfortunately, you're in that boat with a lot of other people, but it doesn't have to be that way.
That's right. Totally avoidable. So the first thing we want to talk about is kind of how do you begin to employ different financial strategies? And I think the first thing that we need to talk about is, what is a strategy? A lot of times when you start talking with an accountant or a financial advisor and an estate planning attorney, one of the things you'll begin talking about is like, just tactical things. What should we be doing? And really what we want to start today is be thinking about the big picture. And that really starts with mapping out the plan. So figuring out where you are headed. One of the things that Catherine and I always like to talk about here is, hey, just when you open up your Google map on your phone, iPhone map on your phone, the first thing you have to do is put in your destination. Where are you going? And then the computer reverse engineers from where you are to get where you want to go. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly how we need to be thinking about a financial strategy, especially if you have business interests or multiple investments where everything is very disjointed. It's figuring out how to line all of those things up and get everything moving in the same direction so that ultimately it's working towards that plan.
Amen. And I don't know if anyone else is like this, but I am a backseat driver. Even when someone else is driving, I want to know, where are we going? Are you taking the shortest direction? Are you taking the highway? Where's the toll roads? Like, I want to know all of those things. And so for me, I always sleep better at night when I know the plan, I know where to go. And the cool thing like Google Maps is you can see where there's construction. If there's a speed trap ahead, that's why it's so important to get really clear about where you want to go and where you're going, because the last thing anyone wants is to be stranded, or you don't know, or someone's lost, or God forbid, my husband tries to take the scenic route. Like, nobody likes that.
Right. But one thing on that previous slide that we should talk about before we get into organizational accountability is really that, what are you really trying to accomplish in life here at the end of the day, right? So, what on your 90th birthday, you're surrounded by your family, you're blowing out a birthday cake with 90 candles on it. It's really, answering that question of like, I'm really proud of this accomplishment. These are the things that are the most important to me and have been, and I've held those true my whole life. And it's really also making sure that plan, both the financial plan, business operational plan, your life plan, like everything is centered around like those things that are the most important to you.
Mhm. Amen.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about organizational accountability. Now, that is not necessarily as feeling oriented, but the most important thing when it comes to organization accountability, and this is different than organizational accountability, is we have got to wrangle all of this data. Like we cannot make decisions. We cannot do planning. We cannot pave a road without having all of the information to understand where it is that all this stuff fits, how it all fits together like a jigsaw puzzle. So this is the part that's the least sexy, and it's definitely not fun. No one really signs up when they're a business owner to have to keep track of all this stuff. But I mean, I was even having a conversation a couple days ago, someone like saying, yeah, hey, I'm trying to find that EIN number for that entity I set up. Like, let me look through my email. Oh, no, not that email box. Oh, my other email box. Oh, maybe I saved it here. Let me look in my Dropbox. Like, that's the component of organization accountability that that is where it just doesn't exist. So like it's really important to understand that many of the problems that we see kind of it's stemming back from the fact that things just aren't organized.
Amen. Real life example that I will give is a common mistake for new entrepreneurs is they are like, my accounting, no one needs to do it. I'll send that to my CPA in January. They'll figure it out. They'll do my taxes. It'll be great. Well, as your business becomes more sophisticated, those accounting records to get them all up to snuff for tax preparation and filing, that takes a significant amount of time. So if you are a business owner right now that's like, oh, why does it take so long for my taxes? Why is it, the fall when I finally get my taxes out for my CPA? What could be taking them so long? I would hand you a mirror and say, how are your accounting records getting to them? Are they squeaky clean and you're handing them everything they need? Or are you handing them a proverbial shoebox and saying, hey, I didn't do anything all year. Could you go ahead and clean and tidy my books and do my taxes? There's a real disconnect there. And really, it is an easy, solvable organizational of all of your documents and the ritual of knowing exactly where all of your stuff is. So that's a quick real life example. I hope no one on this webinar suffers from that disease.
Yeah, I hope not either, but it's very common. The lack of organization, especially from an accounting perspective. So kind of this is the usual thing that you're kind of alluding to, Catherine, here is that books come in to CPA. CPA is going to prepare the tax return. CPA looks at it and they're like, whoa, these books need some serious help. They put that on a shelf. They're in production mode in tax season. Like if it's going to take them time to clean it up, they're going to back burner that until they've got time in the summer, right? Okay, summer comes around. They finally pull that off the shelf. They look at it. They clean the books up. They get all their questions answered. Get the tax return prepared for the business. Plug it into the 1040, and they're like, "Oh no, they owe money. This is a real problem." And that's sort of how all this it snowballs. And if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 entities where you sort of have all these problems on the accounting side, that's the stuff that creates the tax panic, right? So that data disarray is what leads to these moments that just induce straight up panic.
Yeah, true.
Okay, so what do we do from a strategic standpoint? We've got to start planning. We have to start planning out loud. Hey, I'm going to start a business. Okay, great. Let's talk to your attorney about that. Let's make sure that we've got the accounting records set up. Let's start talking about like, how does that integrate into the current tax plan? Oh, hey, does that change our estate plan? What are all these things that we need to vocalize in order to make sure that someone else knows what is happening so that all the right things can be getting done along the way and it's not a massive cleanup effort later.
Yes. And I would say the most important thing is not even just that you are talking and planning out loud, but you're also sharing those plans with your trusted advisors before you do anything. It is much easier to get that advice of how to set the sales beforehand than go, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Ooh, humble pie does not taste very good, y'all. It really doesn't. So there's always time to pause and to be very deliberate before you jump into something. And even, oh, Susan, I'll let you talk about this, but even something is like, oh, well, I'll just become an S election. Like that can have catastrophic consequences if you don't ask the advice of your advisors before you make something like that, like a big tax change.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, some things cannot be changed. Some things are more expensive to clean up than doing them right the first time. So this concept of planning out loud and talking about things. I mean, one of the things that I think entrepreneurs do is they move super fast. But when you kind of zoom out and you think, man, I want to be on the fast road. I want to be on the highway. I want to be going as fast as I can. You're going to be hitting a lot of roadblocks and a lot of just massive traffic along that way if you are trying to do it all alone and just throw caution to the wind, right? Planning out loud, talking about where you're going and what you're planning to do, there can be a more well orchestrated and well-oiled machine that's moving a lot faster, as opposed to, oh, we got this to clean up, slow down. We got this to clean up, slow down. This concept of planning out loud makes the journey so much faster. So from a strategic standpoint, this is one of the things, like, you have to design this into your way of running your business and running your life.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so let's talk about this. This is not something that I think is a very common thought process, especially from entrepreneurs who are dealing with, especially accountants. So I refer to this as the reverse investment standard. Okay, so let's talk about this. You buy a car. You are buying a car from a manufacturer. That manufacturer has put a ton of resources into making sure that the car is mechanically reliable. It is safe. It is designed nicely. The paint's not going to chip, like all the things, right? This is like a massive effort to build something that you are going to pay money for, but it is going to give you an ROI on. My issue is that I think most people do not choose their advisors from a strategic standpoint, thinking, is this person going to invest in me? Are you working with someone who is going to spend 6, 10, 12, 24 hours with you up front to understand everything that you have going on from an accounting, tax, financial perspective? Are they going to invest in you so that they can truly advise you? You show up someplace and somebody wants to invest your money, do a tax return, quickly churn out a deliverable. That's not advice. That is a productized service. And that is not someone who's investing and truly helping you to develop a very clear strategy. So my advice to everybody from a strategic standpoint is to require there to be a reverse investment standard. You're interviewing advisors just the same. Are they going to be investing in you because you're going to be paying them? So, beware of order takers, and make sure that you are really working with someone who's going to build processes and take the time to invest in you so that you get an ROI on your spend with them, because that value truly is created through that learning process.
Yes. And I will add on this. We've also identified there is a role of the CFO spouse. For those married entrepreneurs out there, there's someone in your household that is the CFO spouse. Sometimes that's the business owner. Sometimes it's not. So when you are looking at these advisors that you're bringing in to your ecosystem, it's very important to be having that conversation with all the interested parties. So if you have an advisor that's like, we don't need to talk to your husband, we don't need to talk to your wife, that's a red flag where they are not interested in the holistic view of helping your business and you personally, both at home and in the boardroom.
Yeah, amen to that. Awesome. So that's really that kind of roadmap piece of it. So think of that from a strategic standpoint. You got to have a plan, right?
Well, and now you need a crew. Okay. So we know where we're going. We've already got that identified. Now we need a whole crew to come along with us. You know this from buying cars. There's maintenance that comes along with it. You're going to need a mechanic. You're going to need a body shop at some point, especially if you live in Indiana. I like to go deer hunting with my car. Happens. But anywho, okay, wheels back on the bus. So traveling solo can be so very dangerous. All right. You're going to want to leverage the full benefit of your crew. First, think about your business as it's just the vehicle. It is the vehicle used to fulfill your personal missions, whether that is, I want to be a household name. I want to help my community. I want to be the best that I can be. I want to be able to afford a lifestyle where I can donate my funds and my times to non-for-profits. It means a whole host of different things to different people, but your business is merely the vehicle to get there. Now, the wheels on this vehicle are comprised by some really key components. One of them, of course, is you, your tax advisor, your estate planning attorney, and your financial advisor. And as you're putting some wear and tear and some miles on this vehicle, getting from point A to point B, getting those micro victories along the way in your plan, you're going to want to start picking up additional layers of individuals to come along with you on this trip. So when you're thinking about asset protection, that's insurance. Do I have the right kind? Personal, business, umbrella, marine, it goes on and on and on. Do you have the legal protection that you need? Are you working frequently with a business attorney or an employment attorney? If you are treating your business like it is always for sale, do you have an M&A advisor who is helping you understand the value of your business where it is today and how to increase the value over time to make it the most attractive it can be? So your plan that you've set out is totally going to dictate the relationships of your crew.
Man, I could not have said that any better, Catherine. That is, this is critical. Like the team is key. The team is super key. I will say most people are tempted to go straight to Google University. And little red hen things, right? Like, hey, you know what? I'll just get LegalZoom to do that. Hey, I'll just set up an entity on my own. Hey, I'll just do this. I'll just do my own tax prep. I can just do all this stuff. Guys, the more and more complex your plan gets, the more and more complex your business gets, your wealth gets, the more important it is to have the right crew and the right experts behind you. Google University is great till you get conflicting information. And then you're like, whoa, I don't know what to do. Well, guess what? You need an advisor to help you make that decision. Like, what is right for you, for your specific situation? What is going to be the most important? So costs are just too high not to have the right experts surrounding you at key moments, on your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, preventative maintenance is always cheaper than reactive fixes.
Right. I know. I just saw something this morning. You want to be buying vitamins, not pain medication, right? That's the goal, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of the idea. So that's not usually what people buy. Because they're not thinking ahead. But, if you're sort of employing that Stephen Covey method, beginning with end in mind, then you're sort of knowing, like, here's what I got to do to get there. And there's people who are going to help you along the way. Like, no one's going to do this by themselves. It's just not going to happen. So, all right. Well, speaking of, let's talk about that service team. Okay. So, traveling solo is one thing, and getting that crew, and sort of understanding who those people are. But then you got to make sure that everything is working. So, the service team is there to keep maintaining the vehicle on a regular basis. So it's great if you've got an accountant or you have a financial advisor, but if you never talk to them, like, they're not really being of any service to you. So it's just like tires. You got to check the tread, you got to get your oil change, you got to different seasons require different types of expertise. Periodic evaluation, doing those maintenance checks, the diagnostics, right? Like do the 12-point check on my vehicle. Like, you got to be thinking about having that service team in constant communication and setting up ways for you to keep everybody in the loop.
Absolutely. And I think this might be on my headstone when I pass away. What got you here isn't going to get you there. So what helped you grow your business from $200,000 to $700,000 might not be the same set of advisors that you need to go from 700,000 to 2.5 million. You're going to have a different cast of characters. There's going to be different things that you're going to need to pick up along the way. So be frequently checking and evaluating, because really your vehicle, your business depends on it.
Yeah. And I think it's maybe one of those things where you're gonna have to maybe reevaluate some relationships along the way. It is your needs are gonna change. Your business changes. Your situation changes. There's so many things, so many variables. It's important to consistently evaluate that. I mean, just like especially in accounting engagements, when you start a business, the team that you need and the sophistication of the accounting resources is much different than when you're selling a 20-30 million dollar business. Those services are radically different. The levels of expertise radically different. So you got to be thinking about that along the way.
Yeah. Well, and the basis for all good relationships is communication. That's exactly what that is. So communication among your advisors is crucial. Now, okay, what typically we see is the owner of the business who then is going to go and talk to their financial advisor, and then they're going to go and talk to their attorney, and then they're going to go and talk to all these different individuals, when really what is the most powerful thing to do is to get everyone under one book, on the same chapter, on the same page, reading from the same dang paragraph. So this solution and all these relationships that I just outlined and all these different people in your crew that you're going to need along the way, if you as the business owner are faced with, do I want to manage all of these relationships, or do I want to go close a $3 million deal? It's pretty simple what you want to do right there. So having someone, a advisor, come through and be the quarterback or the leader, ensuring that we've got regular communication, we've got scheduled quarterly or every 6-month meetings, it's a structured agenda, everyone is on the same page. That's huge. And the accountability, because these business owners have cultivated these relationships, allowing someone else to say, but wait, you said you were going to do this by then, where is it? And it's not you as the owner that has to do that. Huge ROI. So communication is the key to all great relationships. Make it frequent, make it transparent, and make it often.
Yes. And make sure everybody does what they say they're going to do. And if they don't, then there needs to be a possible change.
Yep.
That's all there is to it. So, all right. Well, all right. So we got a plan. We got a crew. Now, what about when we're on the road here? So you're on this journey, and you're going to have to be kind of reading the owner's manual along the way, So, it is the check engine light comes on, gas light comes on, some kind of alarm bells go off, right? So what is it that along the way, when you're talking about your strategic design of your whole financial plan, you have to be keeping an eye on all of those indicators that are giving you information, right? So just like when you're driving a car, you're looking at like all the dashboard, right? So this is sort of where that accounting stuff comes into play. I can't tell you the number of times we've asked business owners like, hey, are you getting frequent accounting reports? And they say, yeah, I am. I'm like, okay, do you look at them? And they're, no, I don't. So it's important to understand, like, you have to take the time to read the reports, to use this information. And if you need help figuring out how to interpret the results, to understand how that correlates to the operations of the business, what story is it telling you? That's where you really have to have someone come alongside you and help you to understand how those things fit together and how it fits into that overall plan and how that information has to be related to other members of your crew. But there should be someone who is facilitating those conversations, helping to interpret, helping you to align with what you know from a technical standpoint in the business with what's happening operationally and then what's happening financially. Does that mean you got to be in the nitty gritty details all the time? Like, why is there a stale item on my bank reconciliation? No, but it is sort of understanding what those big patterns and trends are, understanding the things that are worth measuring and that you need to be measuring in order to ensure that the business is staying on track.
Yeah. If you've ever had a car, one of these like little check engine lights come up on your car, your mechanic plugs it into like a little computer and it's got all these like gajillion sensors and it'll tell you exactly where The issue is your dashboard on your vehicle is merely just giving like the high level information. You as the business owner, you are not responsible for owning the little computer and the component and being the mechanic. You're responsible for reading that dashboard to say, hey, there's a problem here. Let's go get that checked out. And if you're not sure, if you're like, I do get my financial reports, but I don't know what they mean, ask your advisors. This is their favorite topic to talk about. So, oh my gosh, if you ask, you better have a full cup of coffee because we're gonna talk long to you about it. So
That's right. Yeah. And, kind of along the way here, we got to be checking our progress. So another key part of this, having an owner's manual and really making sure that we're on track here is that we've got to develop budgets and forecasts. And Meg, if you'll go back just one more slide there to the previous slide. One of the key things that most business owners don't do is they do not create a budget or a forecast. So they're not predicting, they're not using that muscle to establish what they think is going to happen. I would say they're not documenting that. Most business owners have a general idea. They have thought through sort of what they think is possible. They're thinking about their biggest customers, their biggest products or services they're selling. They have a general idea, but they're not memorializing that. And it's certainly not something that they can later then say, hey, why did that deviate from what I expected to happen? When we memorialize forecasts and budgets, we put it into a format we can measure against the actual results. It gets us thinking differently about the intentionality of what it is we grew, what opportunities popped up that we didn't think were going to happen. And I think there's some other things like that, Catherine. I know you've got some thoughts on that too.
oh, yeah, your budgets. Okay, when I hear the word budget, I just want to be like, well, I am not a teenager. I do not need a budget. But really, if we're going to use we're in the car, we're driving, look at the exit signs, look at the mile markers along the road, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going in the right direction. Yes, we're getting closer to our destination. Oh, I don't have to wait for the exit sign because I already know I'm at mile marker 27. That's the budget and forecasting. It's not a stick to beat you with. It is a measurement of where you're going. And so everyone is accountable and on the same page. So as soon as you're like, wait a second, I was supposed to be going north and now I'm going east, you know it. And it's before you get all the way to the East Coast, you know that you're heading the wrong direction.
Yeah. Or maybe you're revising your course, right?
Yes.
That's what you do. It's all right to be like, I thought we were going to go north, but we ended up going east, and that was very lucrative. All
Yeah.
right. But at least you're sort of being aware as opposed to being surprised. But again, this we're not talking about tactical things. We're talking about more strategic things, right? There are things we've got to execute on in order to make sure that the things that we want to happen are happening, or that if they are not happening, we understand why. And
Yep.
we are being more curious about, well, why is that happening? Oh, well, I ended up with this, and this is what's changing in my business, or this is what's happening in the industry, or this new technology was available. It should get us more curious about why things are happening in our business versus, like you said, Catherine, is we're not like, oh, well, you spent $100 more on advertising than you said you would. That's off. That's not the point. The point is to really help to understand big trends and patterns so we can correct mistakes, correct our course more quickly, and or seize opportunities that present themselves.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, this next slide. Potentially, I think we're going to see Susan's face light up over this. It is her favorite topic to talk about.
Well, I think we can all agree that cash is the equivalent of gas in to a car, right? Cash is what fuels your business. Ultimately, is what determines the speed of your trip. I mean, the faster you can get cash into your business, that's the faster that you can turn it into cash in your personal pocketbook, which means you're getting to your goals faster. This is the whole concept of further, faster. Cash is the key. Unfortunately, most people don't really have that big of a grasp on all of the cash flows that are happening both in their business and outflows in their business and inflows personally and outflows personally. It's kind of nebulous, probably more so in the business, a little bit more defined because you're required to keep accounting records. So there's a little bit more visibility there. But even still, really understanding the point of revenue, understanding how cash is collected, how quickly it comes up, what the challenges of that, what kind of recurring revenue possibilities exist. I mean, how do you annuitize that business? Understanding your ideal revenue mix, what generates the most profit, which means cash to the bottom line. I mean, thinking about all of those things, the strategy behind that, those are all drivers to advance cash in the business, right? On the opposite side of that, the outflows, that's where the budget becomes in handy, is to drive accountability. Who's spending what, when, where, how, leveraging technology to understand like how money is leaving the business and kind of getting a grasp on accountability in terms of like when timing of outflows need to happen, along with substantiation of those dollar amounts, making sure all of that is lined up, and of course controls around cash, outgoing cash. I mean, people are still writing checks. Crazy to me that that's still happening. There's a very uncontrolled processes. So, and looking as far into the future as we can, forecasting on cash too can be super handy. So
If you ever want to know that magic number of retirement, of what do I need in the bank, the personal inflows and outflows and the business inflows and outflows are some of the core data that you're going to need. So again, it goes back to if your data's in disarray and if you don't know these numbers, that's a huge issue. How do you know when you need to stop for more fuel? How do you know that you've got enough fuel in the tank to get you from here to has anyone drove through Kansas? Like you can go 200 miles without a gas station. So really important things to know, and to have that on your dashboard and allow it to do the whole bing, bing, bing when you're getting close to only a quarter tank.
yeah. And I mean, a lot of people do. I mean, all fairness, this is probably the number one way that business owners manage their business is by looking at the bank account. Unfortunately, that's just a point in time, and it doesn't take into account all of the specific things that are happening, tangentially to the business. Not just AR and AP and revenue and expenses, but also those things personally that are coming up. I mean, people who start to have kids in college, man, I can attest to that. Man, you're going to be spending a lot of money. Weddings, all the other things down the road. These are all things to be planning around, and it has a lot to do with cash. So fill that cash tank, keep it full, understand the inflows and the outflows, because that's what's going to help you to understand that how quickly you're going to get to your destination, and how that path is going to look for you. If it's going to be a little bit more curvy or is it going to be more linear?
And we all know this, all right? Revenue, income, those are vanity numbers. At the end of the day, we're looking at profit, and your bank account cannot tell you that number. And when you have a profitable business, Susan, there's something that you have to do. People say it's like death and taxes, and that can be awful. So help us. So now you're teaching us all the things that we need to know. Help us drive down those taxes.
Yeah. So I mean, I like to kind of going back to some of the themes here, right? We got a plan. We got the people to help us get there, right? We're monitoring things along the way, and then one of the biggest components. I mean, this is for a business owner, this is one of the biggest expenses in their lifetime, and that's taxes. One of the largest challenges that I see among business owners is that they have a misconception that when they go to an accountant and they ask for their tax return to be prepared, that same person is going to be helping them to find all the ways that they should be doing things differently in order to minimize their taxes. And that, frankly, is just not true. Tax planning is radically different than tax preparation. All right. So I'll kind of paint a little bit of a picture here. Tax preparation, and right now this is, it's the spring. So this is really the time in which preparation begins happening. So all of the numbers from a business that have on the balance sheet and the income statement, those numbers, whatever they were at the end of the year, assuming that it's a calendar year end business, get populated into the tax return. The tax return gets delivered to the client. And if it's pass through entity, like a partnership, an S corp, goes on to the client's 1040, and then they'll end up paying the tax on that. And that's not the preparation process. Like, it's taking the numbers, they are what they are, and that's it, and they can't be changed. Tax planning is much different. Tax planning is a process by which people in our profession are gathering information in advance of the end of the year, in advance of 12/31, and are thinking about things like what else could we be doing to reduce this tax bill? Are there specific tax strategies that aren't being employed? Are there opportunities that are being missed? Are there different ways to structure the business? Are there different ways that we can be interacting with a financial advisor or an estate planning attorney to reduce taxes in the future? So it is more than just putting numbers into a document and printing it and saying that's done, it's a deliverable. It's really getting creative and thinking about all the opportunities that there could be to reduce taxes, not just this year, not just next year, but into the future. The key here is that the most important thing about tax planning is that this has to be something that is maintained. It's not a one and done. It's something that has to be maintained as life changes. And there are very few business owners where they say, this is my business and everything's going to stay the same for the next 20 years. That it just doesn't happen. Entrepreneurs are extremely diverse in their interests and what they want, where they want to invest their money, the things that they want to see grow, the opportunities that get presented to them, frankly. So as those things begin changing, that's an opportunity every quarter, at the end of every year before 12/31 to really dive in and say, hey, let's talk about what this looks like. What are all the things we could and should be doing, and actively discussing those scenarios and really brainstorming as a team to reduce those taxes and proactively plan for the cash that's going to be paid for those tax outlays.
Yep. If you take nothing else from what Susan just said, tax preparation is memorializing the history of what happened. That's all we're doing. We are just memorializing the history of what took place. Tax planning is the future of influencing all of the numbers that when we go to our tax preparer at the beginning of the next year, those numbers are radically different. So those are two way different services. And you can use that at the bar with your friends this weekend. Go ahead, let them all know when they talk about paying taxes and see how many people go, what? And you'll be shocked.
Yeah, I think there is really this misconception that the person preparing your return is going to go through this very extensive planning process for you. No. It's a totally different job set. It's a different skill set. It's a totally different muscle of the brain. And this is one of the chief complaints that we get is that, well, my accountant doesn't think that way. It's like, well, most tax preparers don't.
Yeah.
So again, you got to find a different crew member to really fill that seat.
Yeah, you wouldn't ask your hairdresser to give you a nose job, right? So
exactly. Yes, exactly. That would be unadvisable. So and sometimes it takes more than just being in a car, right? So you might meet different modes of transportation. One of the things that we often find that is overlooked from many different clients is that they keep using the same type of setup. Like, well, if I've got an S corp, I must have a bunch of S corps in order to accomplish my goals. And that's simply not the case, you guys. Like, I call this kind of playing in all the sandbox boxes. This is planes, trains, and automobiles. You're creating and leveraging all the different aspects of different entities can really help you to leverage tax code to your advantage. There are things you can do in a C corporation that you cannot do or would not do in a partnership, and similarly to an S corp or in a disregarded entity on a Schedule C. All those things are very different, and many times there are aspects of each of those entities which are very appetizing and can create a lot of significant tax advantages. Many times people are just scared. They're like, I don't know if it's worth the time and effort. And that's usually because they don't have the right accounting expertise or advisor who's going to say, I'm not just going to tell you what to do. I'm also going to execute on it, and I'm going to handle it all for you. You don't have to worry about the complexity of creating or maintaining that tax plan. You're just going to reap the benefits. So you really got to be working with someone who's not going to put that back on you, right? So that's really making sure that you selected the right accounting advisor that says, I'll take it on and I'll handle it, because I really want what's best for you in the end. And that's to save taxes in this way.
Yep. Amen.
Okay, and I alluded to this before, but you got to fire on all cylinders, guys. The tax code is over 70,000 pages long, and that's a lot. And what's crazy is that the same tax code that applies to a business owner who's creating $500,000 worth of revenue is the same for a publicly traded company, right? Amazon, like the tax code is the same for everybody. So really, this is no wonder people are like, "What am I missing? What should I be doing differently?" I, you guys just, business owners, like you guys didn't go to school to learn this stuff. You're not taking continuing professional education. You're not spending, all your days, reading books on financial management and all these other things about how to effectively leverage the tax code in order to benefit yourselves. That's why you really got to be working with someone who's bringing you suggestions and helping you to identify the areas where, hey, what am I underutilizing here? Is there something that I could be doing or I should be doing, but I'm just not doing? Right? What do you miss? I mean, that's the number one question we get. What is it that I'm missing? I feel like I'm missing something. Am I taking every available deduction? Am I really leveraging every possible thing under the tax code to my benefit? Whether that's real estate or a retirement accounts, employing my spouse or my kids. Is there something more that I could be doing so I can keep more of my own money in my pocket? And so that's really important. It's a really important thing to be thinking about is just asking questions and brainstorming and working with someone who's going to have more of a discussion with you than versus this like ask and answer. Like, is this deductible? Yes. And that's like the extent of the conversation. It's really working with someone who's going to really understand what you've got going on and have an active discussion, right? An active discussion about how things could be working.
Yes. If you are not working with an advisor who's curious, it is time for you to get curious about who you're working with. They should be asking you a lot more questions than just giving you yep, that sounds like a good idea. Or, nope, try this. It should be an ongoing discussion. Goes back to those good relationships, communication. All right.
Yeah.
Arriving at your destination. Okay, we've planned it. We've talked about it. We've mapped it all out. We've got the people. We got the whole thing going. And now we are pulling in to our destination. So, why ever make the destination go longer or more uncomfortable than it needs to be? One of the phrases that we have heard time and time again from high earning, high performing entrepreneurs are, I'm just trying to out earn my last biggest mistake. Holy guacamole. Obtaining trusted advisors that can come alongside you all the way to your destination really will pay off in this going further, faster methodology. A team who has been there, done that, they'll be able to tell you where the potholes are lurking, where the speed traps are ahead. They'll be able to monitor your progress according to the roadmap and the discussions that you had at the very onset to be able to walk you through things, talk you through things, and be able to like raise that red flag, and because they are so in tune with what you need as a business owner. And last but not least, I think this is something that it weighs really heavy on your heart and your stomach is what is it that I should or need to be doing in order to maximize my retirement opportunities? Do I want to work until I'm 80? Do I want to work until I'm 55? What am I going to need for healthcare? What am I going to need for my legacy building? What am I going to need along the way? Do I have enough to maintain my lifestyle? There's lots of different questions along the way, and no surprise, there's not just one answer. It's a whole host of answers that come along into this, to finding that magic number. So when it comes to the entrepreneurial journey, again, going further faster, you got to have the right people in the right places that can help you get to each of your destinations that you have planned.
I couldn't agree more. And understanding that magic number, really, really, really working through that. I think one of the challenges we've seen most frequently is that people they haven't even really stopped to think about what that is. And that's really this next point is this deliberate action. Like most people are just on autopilot. They are on the hamster wheel. Their business is more like a job they've created for themselves. They're starting to phase out of that a little bit. They're getting building that leadership team. They're starting to function in a different and more executive capacity. But you're not going to get there unless you take deliberate action to do it. This is not just going to appear out of nowhere. Like, oh, all of your problems are solved and you paid the least amount of tax and you sold your business for the most amount of money and everyone's happy. And like, it's not, there is no like magic here. It is deliberately and intentionally doing these things in order to get where you want to go.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
it's plain and simple.
And it's not overnight, y'all. Like, I'm just going to use a real life example. I would love to go and lose 40 pounds. Okay. I am not today calling the private chef and the private trainer and ordering the special foods and like getting on the treadmill and running 5 miles. Like, that will be sustainable for precisely 2 days. What it is, it's a lifestyle choice of, hey, I need to figure out my inflows and my outflows. Okay, now I've got that handled. Now I need to look at my accounting records and understand those. Okay, now I've got that handled. And now you're layering all of this different information on top of yourself. So if you're an entrepreneur that is just out the foundation, that's okay. You're going to be layering things on top of it as you go, but you got to get started someplace. You got to know where you're going, and you have to be deliberate to say no to that cupcake every day. You have to say no to that cupcake until you've already done your 5 miles on the treadmill. Then you can have the cupcake. So,
That's
anyway.
right. Yeah, and a lot of times, like sometimes people just don't know where to start.
No.
So, I mean, as part of the first action you really got to take in this executing the strategy is you got to have somebody, let's show you the way. This is sort of like, like nobody travels to at the top of Mount Everest by themselves. They get a Sherpa, somebody who's already been there. They've already done that. They'll show them the way. So, the first deliberate action is to find a guide, someone who can help you create all the components of this strategy and begin executing slowly over time. So, when you look back in a year, you've shed that 40 pounds, right? You've done all the things. You can measure backwards and you can say, look at how far we've come, look at where we're going. And now you also have a much clearer path forward. So, and that really brings us to sort of the destination. We kind of liken this to like the game of life, but maybe this is like our car theme or something, little cars with the kids, oh, you had twins, pay $50,000 or something. So, I think this is I think they've changed the game of life. It used to be Poor Farm or Millionaire Acres. I think that's probably a little bit not correct anymore, but that's really sort of, like there's this stretch of possibilities, like what really is going to happen to me, and what am I creating, not just for myself but for my spouse, my family, like all the things like that are in my future. Like, where am I going to be on this time, this span of, from either I don't have enough to make sure that I can fund the lifestyle that I want in the future, to I've got more than enough and maybe I didn't utilize that property properly in my lifetime. I could have done something more with it to make a difference to the things that are important to me. So it's really taking all of that into account, but sort of understanding, like Dr. Wayne Dyer says, you are the sum total of all of your choices. Well, the same goes for your financial plan. It is the sum total of all of your choices. So, if you want to work on your future, you got to start making different choices.
Yeah. And wealth is that gateway to personal freedom. If you desire, I don't want to have to call someone when I'm sick and call in. Or if you desire, hey, no more missed family moments or vacations responding to an email. If you want absolutely no chance that top ramen is on the menu after the age of 20, you got to have this plan in place and someone that can help you get there, and reduce that anxiety of, did I make the right choice? Am I doing all the things possible? Did I arrive where I was supposed to arrive? Working with the right advisors and the right advisory team in your vehicle is going to make all the difference.
Yeah. And really turns that to vulnerability into certainty. And that's what we all really are looking for, is we want more certainty that we're going to get where we said we were going to go. And planning is the key to doing that, having a good strategy, making sure you're working with the right team. You know where you're going, you got the right team, you're paying attention along the way, you're reducing your taxes, and you're keeping an eye on that final destination. And that is really building that strategy. So I'd be curious to know how everybody feels after kind of hearing what we had to say. Like, are you doing all these things? How does your financial strategy really kind of measure up when you kind of look at all those bars? So I know we've got about 5 minutes left. That's really kind of the conclusion of our this portion of our webinar. But we know we have maybe some questions that have popped up. Meg, I
You
don't know if
do.
you've got a
Um,
few here.
yes, I'm here. I've got the questions. That was amazing. So much great information there. The whole tax planning versus tax preparation, like when Catherine was talking about that aha moment, I thought was great. We've got some wonderful questions in the chat right now. We've got about 5. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to do all 5 of them in 5 minutes, depending on how much we want to get through, or maybe running a minute or two over. But our first one is someone is thinking about buying a couple of houses to rent out. And what advice would you give to someone that's starting out in real estate?
Oh, yeah, that is a very complex question. There's many variables under the tax code. One thing that I would say is that is something that needs to be integrated into a bigger discussion. It has implications that, depending on your income, could affect your taxes. Depending on your income, could not affect your taxes. Depending on your future, I guess depending on the quality of the asset, it could really impact your cash flow into once that asset is paid for. So many things to think about, so many opportunities, ways to structure that, lots of implications. My suggestion would be that's an opportunity to sit down and have, we call it get unboxed from the beginning. If you are sort of at the point in which you're like, I don't know if I'm going to get into this, but I think I am. I really want to sit down and understand how strategically to implement something like that. We have a special service just for someone who's kind of contemplating those things. So you can really, really get to know all of the different facets of how that would apply to you. So anything from understanding the tax, the tax advantages, how depreciation works or something like that, how that could integrate into a larger financial planning discussion, what other write-offs or deductions might be available, how to talk to an attorney about how to structure something like that in in an LLC or something similar. All of those things, we really recommend that people sit down and have a much longer discussion. Usually that's a 2 to 3 hour talk about all the different things and how that integrates into your overall plan. So I would say make sure you get the right advisor and sit down and really understand the big picture and then get unboxed from the beginning. Service is perfect for something like that.
All ties back to that communication you were talking about.
Does.
Yes.
So true.
Yeah.
Our next, the next question we have here is, I feel like I'm wearing too many hats. I don't have enough time to focus on strategic initiatives like this. Can this be delegated?
Oh, can it be delegated? Yes. Are entrepreneurs good at delegating? No. So yes, it can be. This is part of working with an advisor who's going to take that position of, hey, I'm your quarterback. I'm going to get the ball. I'm going to run the play that's called. All you have to do is show up and tell me the final decisions. That's what you really want to get at, is to be able to delegate and to elevate yourself to go and work on other things that are more important to you and to chase your passion. Again, if you're going to sit down to have a discussion about your financial inflows, outflows, and budgeting, or would you rather go and close a $300,000 deal? Easy every day of the week. You're going to go close that deal. It's working with the advisor that can say, yeah, I know you're going to go do that. I'm going to do all of this for you. I'm going to get all teed up. I'm going to get ready to rock and roll for you. Delegating that stuff, it really can alleviate you from wearing all of those hats by getting the right people in the right seats. But again, that's really hard. It is hard not to eat the cupcake every day. It is hard to delegate and to trust someone else to do that. So I'm not saying that's an easy task, but it is possible. And it does start with having a good relationship with an advisor that you trust, who can help to help you get where you want to go and elevate you to work on the things that matter most to you in your business.
Yeah, that can be literally life changing for some people.
Yes.
It just can be life changing because then they don't have to worry about all the tiny details and they can really focus on the thing that they're great at. Most of the time, business owners are just not great at a lot of these administrative, certainly not the accounting tax things. They want to be informed and they want to have the information and they want to be a part of the strategic process, but the execution, like just somebody take care of it. Just do it for me. Like I just want it to be done. Like just tell me everything's finished, and that's what really matters to them the most. Like I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm not going to jail. I don't want to wear an orange jumpsuit. Like I want everything to be finished and done. I want to have influence over it, but I don't necessarily have to be doing it.
Yes, that's perfect. Now, if anyone has ever worked with me before, you know that I'm a stickler for starting on time and ending on time. So I just want to thank everyone for coming out and to listening in to our webinar. It has been a fabulous turnout, better than we expected. One thing that everyone is good at is Googling and knowing where to go and what to do. So you can go to our website over at unboxedadvisors.com. We've got free downloadable gifts and little trinkets over there for you and the clients that you serve, including, y'all, don't miss the home office deduction. You're going to want to take that to your tax preparer this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also connect with us on LinkedIn. Stay in touch with us. We like to post information that can be helpful to business owners. Our thoughts on things that are happening just from a general economic perspective, new tax laws, articles that we find interesting, and of course, some personal tidbits about the both of us. So we'd love to, connect with people there. So check us out and stay in touch.